The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. Victoria's voice was ice cold. "Pack your bags, Nathan. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, and you need to be out of my house by noon." Click. Dead silence. But what she said next in that voicemail she thought she'd hung up on changed everything. "Brandon, baby, I told you we just had to wait until I got rid of him. Now we can finally be together with my $10 million. Please subscribe if you've ever trusted someone who was planning your destruction." That's how I discovered my wife of 4 years had just won $10 million, was having an affair, and decided I was suddenly disposable. But here's what both of them forgot. Her parents had forced me to sign a prenup that was about to become their worst nightmare. I'm Nathan Coleman, 31 years old, former Marine who served 2 tours in Afghanistan before transitioning to civilian construction management. Built my career from nothing, working my way up from general laborer to operations manager at Blackstone Construction in Denver. I drive a paid-off F-150, live within my means, and believe in earning everything through hard work and integrity. Victoria Ashford came from a completely different universe. Colorado old money, generational wealth, the kind of family that has buildings and hospital wings named after them. Her father, Richard, owns Ashford Real Estate Development. You've probably seen their signs on half the commercial properties in Denver. Her mother, Catherine, sits on museum boards, organizes charity galas, and speaks with that polite but condescending tone that wealthy women perfect over generations. The Ashfords live in a 12,000-square-foot mansion in Cherry Hills Village, complete with a circular driveway, marble fountain, and staff quarters. Every family dinner felt like a job interview I was perpetually failing. Every conversation a subtle reminder that I didn't belong in their world of trust funds and country club memberships. My background couldn't be more opposite. I grew up in a ranch-style house in Thornton, where my dad worked as an electrician for Denver Public Schools, and my mom taught 3rd grade. We had barbecues in the backyard, not wine tastings in climate-controlled cellars. Family gatherings meant watching football and arguing about sports, not discussing stock portfolios and real estate investments. When Victoria and I met at a mutual friend's wedding 5 years ago, the attraction was instant, despite our different backgrounds. She was studying interior design, I was fresh out of the military and building my construction career. But from day one, her parents viewed me as temporary entertainment. Richard would corner me at family events with probing questions about my 5-year financial plan and whether I truly understood the lifestyle Victoria deserves. Catherine made passive-aggressive comments about my work clothes, my truck, or my parents' modest house whenever we visited. 3 days before that devastating phone call, everything seemed normal. I was wrapping up a 12-hour shift managing a hotel renovation project when Victoria called, absolutely screaming with excitement. Nathan, oh my God, I can't believe it. Slow down, babe, what happened? I won. I actually won the state lottery jackpot, $10 million. My first reaction was pure euphoria. After years of careful budgeting, student loan payments, and building our life together paycheck by paycheck, we'd hit the ultimate jackpot. Financial freedom. Dream vacations. Maybe starting the family we discussed. Holy shit, Victoria, we did it. This changes everything for us. But her response chilled me to the bone. Complete silence for what felt like forever then. Nathan, you absolutely cannot tell anyone about this. Not your parents, not your buddies at work. Not anyone. We need to be completely strategic about how we handle this. Strategic. That word kept echoing in my head like a warning bell I should have heeded immediately. Over the next 48 hours, Victoria's behavior became increasingly strange. She scheduled meetings with financial advisors I'd never heard of, spoke in hushed tones during phone calls, and started spending entire afternoons at her parents' mansion, planning our financial strategy. Looking back, the signs had been there for months. Victoria's phone habits had changed. Always face down, taking calls in private, deleting text histories. She'd started working late at design consultations, coming home with expensive gifts she claimed were client appreciation. When I asked about her new jewelry or designer handbags, she'd brush it off. You wouldn't understand the networking requirements in my industry, Nathan. When I asked to be included in these crucial discussions about our lottery winnings, She'd brush me off with condescending explanations. "You're being paranoid, Nathan. My family handles our finances properly. You're being controlling asking about my networking events. Your insecurity is becoming embarrassing at family gatherings." High-level financial decisions about money we had won together that I was apparently too stupid to comprehend. The final red flag came the day before the divorce bombshell. Victoria announced she was taking a girls' trip to Aspen with her cousin Madison to celebrate privately and clear her head. When I offered to send flowers to her hotel as a surprise, the resort had no record of her reservation. Confronting her about the discrepancy, she became defensive and accusatory. "Nathan, why are you checking up on me? Don't you trust me?" There was obviously a booking mix-up. Now I know she was meeting with divorce attorneys in Aspen, finalizing the legal strategy to cut me out of the lottery winnings entirely. That 2:47 a.m. phone call was her victory lap. She'd won the lottery, secured legal representation, planned my complete exclusion from our windfall, and coordinated my removal from the house without involving me in a single decision. In her mind, she'd upgraded from construction manager's wife to independent millionaire overnight. But that accidental voicemail revelation about Brandon changed everything. My wife wasn't just greedy, she was a cheating liar who'd been planning this betrayal for months. When Victoria and I got engaged 3 years earlier, her parents' true nature emerged with crystal clarity. Richard cornered me during a family barbecue, bourbon in hand, laying out non-negotiable terms like a business transaction. "Son, let's dispense with pleasantries. You want to marry my daughter, you're signing a prenuptial agreement. This isn't a discussion or negotiation." I was 28, deeply in love, and frankly intimidated by their family attorney, multiple legal advisors, and generational wealth that stretched back over a century. The prenup meeting took place in Richard's mahogany-paneled home office, complete with expensive artwork and an atmosphere designed to emphasize the power dynamic. Their lawyer, Harrison Blackwell, presented a 32-page document that might as well have been written in ancient Latin. But the basic terms seemed reasonable enough. Victoria's existing family money, trust funds, and future inheritance remained her separate property. Anything we built together during marriage would be divided equitably if we ever divorced. Here's the crucial phrase that would ultimately destroy their entire plan. Richard and Catherine insisted on this specific language. Any significant financial gains, windfalls, or monetary prizes, including but not limited to lottery winnings, gambling proceeds, contest prizes, or unexpected inheritance acquired during the marriage, shall be considered joint marital assets subject to equitable distribution. They were absolutely paranoid about fortune hunters. Richard had dealt with several gold diggers targeting wealthy families in their social circle, and this clause was designed to protect them if I ever struck it rich through luck and tried to exclude Victoria from the windfall. The delicious irony is that they never imagined their precious daughter would be the one holding a winning lottery ticket, trying to cut out her husband. I signed that prenup because I loved Victoria and had zero intention of becoming wealthy through gambling or luck. I was building my career through military discipline, hard work, and strategic planning. The lottery clause seemed like pure fantasy. What were the realistic odds of that ever mattering? Our wedding 6 months later was everything you'd expect from the Ashford family. 400 guests, full orchestra, reception at the most exclusive country club in Colorado. The first 3 years of marriage had their challenges, but we genuinely built something meaningful together. We purchased a beautiful colonial-style house in Highlands Ranch. Richard provided the down payment as a wedding gift, but I'd been making every mortgage payment for 36 consecutive months. Victoria handled interior design projects while I managed our finances, investments, and long-term planning. She worked part-time at a boutique design firm, more for creative fulfillment than financial necessity. I was pulling 60-hour weeks, building my reputation in construction management, saving for our future dreams of starting a family, and maybe launching our own design-build company. But warning signs existed that I chose to rationalize rather than confront. Victoria's parents never stopped treating me like hired help who'd somehow gained access to their family circle. They'd show up unannounced to check on the house, rearrange our furniture without permission, and make subtle comments about my background during social gatherings. Victoria usually defended me in private but rarely confronted her parents directly about their disrespectful behavior. She'd make excuses. They're just protective of family, or they'll warm up eventually. I started realizing she was trapped between two worlds and wasn't sure which one she truly belonged to. After that devastating 2:47 a.m. phone call, I drove to our house in complete shock, hands literally shaking as I tried to process the betrayal. Victoria was there with her cousin Madison and Aunt Margaret, systematically packing my belongings like they were disposing of contaminated materials. "Victoria, what the hell is happening here? We need to talk about this." She didn't even look up from folding my military dress uniform, the same one I'd worn during our wedding ceremony 4 years earlier. "There's nothing to discuss, Nathan. I've already retained Cromwell and Associates. You'll be hearing from them within 48 hours with all the legal details." Cromwell and Associates, the most expensive, ruthless divorce firm in Colorado. The kind of legal sharks who specialize in protecting wealthy clients and destroying middle-class opponents who dare to fight back. So that's it. 4 years of marriage, 3 years of mortgage payments, building a life together, and you're just done? Madison, who'd always resented my presence in the family, smirked with barely concealed satisfaction. "Nathan, let's be completely realistic here. Victoria doesn't need you anymore. She can afford much better now." That comment hit like a physical blow to the chest. Better? I've been supporting this household financially for 3 years while Victoria played with her hobby design projects. Victoria finally looked directly at me, and I saw a complete stranger wearing my wife's face. Cold, calculating, utterly devoid of the warmth and affection I'd fallen in love with. "Nathan, let's be honest about our situation. We both know this marriage was never going to work long term. My family and I have different expectations, different standards for the future." Different standards. Translation: now that she had FU money, she didn't need to slum it with the military veteran construction manager anymore. "Your family? What about US? What about the life we built together over 4 years?" "The life I funded," she shot back coldly. "This house, our furniture, our vacations, everything meaningful came from my family's generosity. You just existed here and made mortgage payments." That was a complete fabrication. I had 3 years of bank statements proving I'd paid our mortgage, utilities, groceries, car insurance, and home maintenance. But arguing with her felt pointless. She'd already rewritten our entire relationship history to justify her betrayal. That's when I heard Victoria's phone buzz with a text message. She grabbed it quickly, but I caught a clear glimpse of the contact name, Brandon, with a heart emoji. My blood went ice cold. Who the hell is Brandon? Nobody important. Just a financial advisor friend helping me understand investment strategies. The lie was so obvious it was insulting. Financial advisors don't get heart emojis, and they definitely don't text at 3:30 in the morning. I packed what I could fit in my F-150 and drove to my parents' house in Thornton, feeling like my entire world had imploded overnight. The contrast was jarring. From our 3,500 square foot showcase home to my childhood bedroom with faded sports posters and high school trophies. My mom, Linda, took one look at my face and immediately knew something catastrophic had happened. She has that maternal intuition that can read disaster from 3 states away. She won the lottery, Mom, $10 million, and she's divorcing me. My father, Robert, didn't say, "I told you so," even though he'd warned me about the Ashford's character from our very first family dinner. Instead, he poured 3 fingers of bourbon and sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "Son, money doesn't change people fundamentally. It just reveals who they really were underneath all along." He was absolutely right, but that truth didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. Without hesitation, my dad made a phone call to his old Army buddy, Marcus Chen, who'd become one of Denver's most respected family law attorneys after his own military service. Marcus had built his reputation defending working-class people against wealthy opponents who assumed money could buy any legal outcome. The next morning, I found myself sitting in Marcus's modest downtown office, feeling like my entire existence had been reduced to legal documents and financial calculations. The office was professional, but unpretentious. No mahogany paneling or intimidation tactics, just honest legal work and military precision. I handed him the prenup, fully expecting to be told that I was completely screwed and should accept whatever crumbs the Ashfords offered. Marcus read through the document twice, making detailed notes and occasionally raising his eyebrows at specific clauses. Then he started chuckling. "Nathan, do you actually understand what this document says?" "It says, I get nothing because her family has generational wealth and I don't." "No, brother. It explicitly states that lottery winnings acquired during marriage are joint marital assets. Your wife's parents were so paranoid about protecting their generational wealth from potential gold diggers, they created the exact legal weapon that's going to secure your rightful share of this jackpot." I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. "You're seriously saying?" "I'm saying you're legally entitled to a significant portion of those lottery winnings. And if they try to hide assets, manipulate the legal system, or play intimidation games, they're about to learn why I haven't lost a contested divorce case in 4 years. Smash subscribe if you believe cheaters deserve exactly what they get. Marcus explained the legal landscape with military precision. Colorado follows equitable distribution laws, meaning marital assets are divided fairly but not necessarily equally. However, the prenup's crystal-clear language about lottery winnings being joint property gave us enormous legal leverage. "The Ashfords made 3 critical mistakes," Marcus continued, pulling out a legal pad. "First, they included overly broad language about financial windfalls to protect themselves from you. Second, Victoria purchased that winning ticket using your joint checking account, the account you primarily funded with your construction income. Third, her immediate divorce filing after the lottery win demonstrates clear intent to defraud you of marital assets." He pulled up our joint bank records that I'd provided during our initial consultation. For 3 solid years, my paychecks from Blackstone Construction had been directly deposited into our shared account. Victoria's part-time design income was minimal, maybe $12,000 annually when she actually worked. "This isn't about gold digging or opportunistic behavior," Marcus said firmly. "This is about a wife attempting to steal legitimate marital assets and systematically exclude her husband from windfall earnings that legally belong to both parties under their own prenuptial agreement." But the Ashfords weren't going down without deploying every dirty trick in their considerable arsenal. They had unlimited financial resources, political connections throughout Colorado, and zero moral boundaries when it came to protecting their money. Richard Ashford called my boss at Blackstone Construction within hours of Marcus filing our initial paperwork, claiming I was mentally unstable and potentially violent due to the divorce proceedings. He suggested that employing me might create liability issues for the company. My boss, Frank Martinez, had worked with me for 4 years and knew my character intimately. He told Richard to direct his concerns to the legal system and hung up. When direct intimidation failed, Richard hired a private investigator to follow me around Denver, documenting my activities and looking for any compromising information they could use against me in court. This PI was about as subtle as a neon sign in a funeral home. Sitting in coffee shops where I grabbed lunch, parked outside my parents' house for hours, even showing up at my gym during my morning workouts with a telephoto camera. One Tuesday morning, I decided to have some fun with him. I led him on a 2-hour chase through downtown Denver's most congested areas, hitting every red light, taking the longest possible routes through construction zones, making sudden U-turns, and finally pulling into a police station parking lot where I got out and waved cheerfully at him. The PI, realizing he'd been made, sped away so fast he probably broke 3 traffic laws. He never followed me again. Catherine Ashford took a more sophisticated approach. She started a whisper campaign throughout Denver's elite social circles, painting me as a manipulative gold digger who'd seduced their innocent daughter into marriage, specifically to position myself for financial exploitation. The irony was breathtaking. I'd been working construction and military contracting for 8 years before meeting Victoria. I had my own savings, my own vehicle, my own apartment. I'd never asked the Ashford family for a single dollar. But wealthy people excel at telling themselves whatever stories they need to justify their behavior and maintain their sense of moral superiority. Marcus filed our emergency motion to freeze all lottery proceeds on a Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, Victoria's legal team was in full panic mode. Cromwell and Associates brought in 2 additional senior partners, a forensic accountant and a private wealth management consultant, burning through billable hours like they were defending a capital murder case. Their first strategy was pure intimidation, wrapped in legal language. Harrison Blackwell, the same attorney who drafted the prenup, called Marcus with what he described as a generous settlement offer to resolve everything quickly. $50,000, to walk away quietly and never contact Victoria again. $50,000 out of $10 million in lottery winnings. Marcus didn't even dignify the insult with a formal response. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving both sides time to prepare comprehensive legal strategies. During this period, Victoria's team tried every manipulative tactic they could devise to pressure me into accepting a lowball settlement. They filed motions questioning my mental stability, suggesting I was suffering from financial stress-induced psychological episodes that made me unsuitable for significant monetary awards. They requested detailed financial records going back 10 years, fishing for any evidence that I'd married Victoria with mercenary intentions. Most pathetically, they tried to argue that the lottery ticket was purchased with Victoria's separate mental property because she had chosen the specific numbers, despite clear bank records showing the transaction came from our joint account funded primarily by my income. Marcus countered each desperate maneuver with surgical precision. He subpoenaed Victoria's complete personal financial records, revealing that she'd contributed virtually nothing to our household expenses during the entire marriage. He documented every mortgage payment, utility bill, grocery receipt, and maintenance expense that proved I was the primary financial provider for our shared life. Most importantly, he highlighted the prenup's crystal-clear language about lottery winnings being marital property, noting that the Ashfords' own attorney had drafted this specific clause. But then Marcus's investigation uncovered something that changed the entire dynamic of our case. Victoria hadn't just been planning to divorce me after winning the lottery. She'd been conducting systematic affairs for 18 months, using multiple dating apps while I worked overtime shifts. Marcus's investigation uncovered a devastating pattern. Victoria had been active on dating apps for 18 months. Credit card records showed expensive restaurant charges for 2 when I was working overtime, hotel charges during her girls' weekends that she'd attended alone. Most painfully, several of our mutual friends knew about her affairs but had stayed silent, apparently viewing me as the naive husband who deserved his fate. "Nathan," Marcus said grimly, "this wasn't opportunistic behavior after the lottery. This was systematic deception with years of practice. The lottery just gave her the financial confidence to stop hiding." Her most recent affair was with Brandon Hartwell, heir to Hartwell Pharmaceuticals and son of one of Colorado's wealthiest families. The affair wasn't just emotional or physical. Brandon had been actively coaching Victoria on divorce strategy, asset concealment techniques, and even which legal firms to retain. He wanted a wealthy wife to complement his pharmaceutical empire. And Victoria's lottery win was his golden ticket to the perfect trophy marriage. But the discoveries got even more explosive. Marcus also uncovered that Richard and Catherine Ashford were facing serious financial difficulties despite their outward appearance of wealth. Their real estate empire was leveraged to dangerous levels, and they owed millions in back taxes that the IRS was preparing to collect through asset seizure. Victoria's lottery win wasn't just about upgrading to a richer boyfriend. Her parents desperately needed that money to avoid complete financial ruin and potential bankruptcy. Then came the biggest revelation of all. Madison, Victoria's cousin, who'd been helping pack my belongings that morning, approached Marcus through an intermediary. Turns out the Ashford family had been treating Madison like unpaid household staff for years, despite her being a legitimate family member with her own inheritance rights. Madison was ready to burn down the entire family structure that had marginalized and exploited her. She had recordings, phone calls where Victoria and Brandon laughed about finally getting rid of the construction worker. Text message chains where Catherine provided detailed instructions on hiding lottery assets from divorce proceedings. Even email exchanges where Richard discussed various schemes to intimidate me into accepting a minimal settlement. But Madison's most damaging recording was Victoria bragging to her cousin, "I've been planning this exit strategy for 2 years. Nathan's so predictable, working all those overtime hours while I had complete freedom. These military guys are so trusting, they think everyone has their sense of honor. Brandon's just the upgrade I've been waiting for, but I've had plenty of practice with other guys." Hearing my wife mock my character while describing years of calculated betrayal was devastating. The preliminary hearing became an absolute bloodbath. Marcus presented evidence not just of the prenup violation, but of conspiracy to defraud marital assets, systematic adultery conducted over 18 months during active marriage, attempted witness intimidation, and calculated psychological manipulation. Judge Diana Rodriguez's expression grew increasingly stern as Marcus presented evidence of Victoria's systematic pattern of deception. "Mrs. Ashford, this court finds that your lottery filing was merely the culmination of years of calculated marital fraud and emotional manipulation." Judge Diana Rodriguez, known for her no-nonsense approach to family law, was visibly furious as the evidence mounted. "Mrs. Ashford, you filed for divorce immediately after winning a substantial lottery jackpot, systematically excluded your husband from all financial discussions despite clear prenuptial obligations, and conducted an extramarital relationship during the marriage. This court does not look kindly on such calculated deception." Victoria's legal team tried desperately to minimize the catastrophic damage. They offered increasingly desperate settlements. First $200,000, then $500,000, then $800,000, then a full $1 million. Each time, Marcus declined with professional courtesy but absolute firmness. "Your Honor, my client isn't interested in accepting table scraps when he's legally entitled to his fair share of marital assets under the prenuptial agreement that the defendants themselves insisted upon." During this legal chaos, Brandon Hartwell's true character emerged with perfect clarity. When local news outlets picked up the story of the lottery divorce scandal, his family's public relations team went into full damage control mode. Suddenly, Brandon was reassessing his relationship priorities and focusing intensively on family business obligations rather than personal romantic commitments. Translation: he didn't want his pharmaceutical empire associated with a cheating, lying scandal that might damage the family's corporate reputation. Victoria, watching her lottery millions slip away and her affair partner abandon ship simultaneously, suffered a complete psychological meltdown during court proceedings. She started screaming at her own legal team, blaming her parents for forcing the prenuptial agreement, and demanding to know why nobody had adequately protected her from this legal disaster. Judge Rodriguez called an immediate recess. When court resumed, Victoria was heavily sedated and flanked by crisis mental health counselors. But the legal facts remained undeniable, regardless of Victoria's emotional state. The prenup's language was crystal clear and legally binding. The lottery ticket purchase used joint marital funds. Victoria's systematic attempt to exclude me from marital assets while conducting an extramarital affair demonstrated absolutely clear intent to commit fraud. Judge Rodriguez delivered her final ruling with barely contained contempt for the defendant's behavior. The lottery winnings are unquestionably marital assets per the explicit language of the prenuptial agreement that the defendants insisted upon. However, given Mrs. Ashford's egregious conduct, the systematic extramarital affair, the conspiracy to conceal marital assets, the perjury in legal filings, and the calculated exclusion of her husband from major financial decisions, this court awards Mr. Coleman 50% of the net lottery proceeds. 50%, plus complete reimbursement for all legal fees, plus compensation for mortgage contributions with accumulated interest, plus punitive damages for the attempted fraud. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs and whispered conversations. Catherine Ashford made a sound like a wounded animal. Richard looked like he was mentally calculating bankruptcy scenarios. Victoria stared at the defendant's table, tears streaming down her face as the reality of her choices finally hit home. I walked out of that courthouse with a settlement worth $3.8 million after all calculations and legal fees. Drop a and subscribe if you love watching karma work in real time. But the aftermath proved even more satisfying than the legal victory itself. The story exploded across Denver's social media landscape within hours. Lottery prenup became a trending topic throughout Colorado. Victoria became the unwitting poster child for greed, stupidity, and marital betrayal, while local news portrayed me as the blue-collar hero who refused to be bullied by generational wealth. Brandon Hartwell's engagement to Victoria lasted exactly 72 hours after the court ruling became public. His family's background investigation team discovered the affair, the fraud attempts, the financial scandal, and the complete destruction of Victoria's reputation. He dumped her through his corporate attorney. Not even a personal phone call or face-to-face conversation. Just a formal letter dissolving their relationship due to incompatible long-term objectives. Victoria's parents' financial empire collapsed within 6 months like a house of cards. The IRS seized multiple properties to cover years of unpaid taxes. Creditors foreclosed on leveraged real estate holdings. Their social standing in Denver's elite circles was permanently destroyed, and former friends distanced themselves to avoid guilt by association. Madison inherited what little remained of the family trust fund through legal maneuvering that excluded Richard and Catherine entirely. Perfect poetic justice for years of exploitation and mistreatment. The ripple effects continued for months. Victoria's story became a cautionary tale whispered at country club dinners and charity galas throughout Colorado. She'd become synonymous with greed, betrayal, and spectacular legal incompetence. 6 months after the settlement, I was building my own construction consulting firm when Victoria appeared at my office looking desperate, broken, and completely defeated. "Nathan, I made the absolute worst mistake of my entire life. I lost everything. The money, Brandon, my family's respect, my reputation. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed to tell you that I realize what I destroyed." I looked across my desk at the woman who'd once been my wife, now reduced to begging the man she'd systematically manipulated and betrayed for years. "Victoria, you didn't lose me through some tragic accident. You deliberately threw me away for money and men you thought were better options. It wasn't the lottery that changed you. It just gave you the financial freedom to stop pretending to be a decent person." She started crying with genuine desperation. I was scared, manipulated by my parents, influenced by Brandon. "You were 30 years old when you made these choices. You had years of practice deceiving me, manipulating situations, and planning your exit strategy. Adult decisions require accepting adult consequences. I'm not responsible for fixing the mess you created through your own calculated betrayal." She left my office that day and moved to California within a month, hoping her lottery scandal wouldn't follow her to the West Coast. I used part of the settlement to completely pay off my parents' mortgage and send them on the European vacation they dreamed about for 20 years but could never afford. Watching my mother cry tears of joy when I handed her those cruise tickets was worth every moment of legal hell I'd endured. The remainder went into smart investments and building my construction consulting business from the ground up. Within 18 months, I was employing 8 people and had a waiting list of clients who valued competence and integrity over family connections. But the most important change was meeting Sarah Martinez at a veterans charity event where I was volunteering. She's a nurse practitioner and former Army medic who'd served 2 tours in Iraq before transitioning to civilian healthcare. Sarah knew about the lottery case. It had been covered extensively in local media. But she was genuinely more interested in my character and values than my bank account. She'd built her own successful medical practice through dedication and hard work, supporting herself and her teenage daughter without needing anyone's financial rescue. Dating Sarah was like breathing fresh air after years of manipulation, games, and conditional affection. We made important decisions together, communicated honestly about finances and future goals, and supported each other's professional ambitions without competition, or resentment. 2 years later, I received one final communication from the Ashford family's legal representatives. Catherine's attorney offered me a substantial sum to sign a comprehensive, non-disclosure agreement about the entire divorce proceedings and lottery case. They wanted to purchase my silence to begin rebuilding their shattered reputation in Denver's social circles. I sent back a simple, direct response. The truth doesn't need to be hidden, managed, or purchased. The Ashford family's actions speak for themselves and require no additional commentary from me. Today, 5 years after that devastating 2:47 a.m. phone call that changed my life forever, I'm engaged to Sarah. My consulting business employs 12 full-time people across 3 states. And I've learned that my worth isn't determined by other people's bank accounts, social approval, or family connections. Victoria's cautionary tale continues circulating throughout Denver's social circles. The privileged rich girl who threw away everything meaningful for greed and ended up with absolutely nothing to show for her betrayal. The prenup her paranoid parents forced me to sign to protect their family money ultimately cost them over $4 million and permanently destroyed their reputation in the community they'd spent generations building. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply allowing people to experience the natural, inevitable consequences of their own choices and character flaws. To everyone watching who might be facing their own relationship betrayals, family manipulation, or financial disputes, remember that your fundamental worth isn't determined by other people's wealth, social status, or approval. Stand up for yourself with dignity, document everything meticulously, get excellent legal advice from people who share your values, and never accept less than you legitimately deserve just because someone tries to intimidate you with money or family connections. The Ashfords assumed they could easily steamroll a simple construction manager because I didn't have generational wealth, political connections, or social status. They learned the hard way that character, thorough preparation, and legal rights matter infinitely more than trust funds and country club memberships. Drop your craziest betrayal stories in the comments below. I read every single one, and the most shocking ones might become future videos about standing up to bullies and winning against impossible odds. Remember, you absolutely don't have to accept mistreatment from people who think their money makes them superior. Fight intelligently for yourself, build your own genuine success, and never let anyone convince you that their wealth makes them more valuable than your integrity and self-respect. Peace out, legends.